Good afternoon. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Welcome to APTN National News. The family of Mercedes Myron spoke earlier this morning. They wanted to give their response to news this week that a search of the Prairie Green landfill is getting underway. The remains of Myron and Morgan Harris, both victims of admitted serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky, are believed to be in the privately owned landfill north of the city of Winnipeg.
It was a long 2 years. Should have never happened, but at least it's getting done, and I am so happy. My granddaughter is happy, Mercedes' sister Brandy, her mom is happy. We're all excited that it's going to be done. We did not know how long before we get to bring her home, but we will get her home, and that's the most exciting part of it all. It started.
And we will have more on this story tonight on our APTN National News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The Federal Minister of Crown-Indigenous Relations is pleased to see the landfill search moving ahead in Winnipeg. Gary Anandasangari put out a tweet Tuesday night saying, "Permits are in place. We are going to keep pursuing justice and healing with the families, communities, and Manitoba. The landfill will be searched." Wednesday, the minister was critical of the Winnipeg police for not doing the search during a media scrum in Ottawa. Anandasangari was asked why the upcoming search would be different, given Winnipeg police had raised concerns about their ability to search the landfill.
I want to just contrast with what's happening in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan right now, right? So there is a search that's being undertaken by the police, and it is important that police discharge their duties in a manner that is, that they're charged with. In this particular case, they didn't feel that the search was required, but I do think it's important that the search is done. We can look at history, we can look at what happened with Robert Pigpen and the Picton Farms, where the RCMP did the search. We can look at what's happening in Saskatoon, where the search is taking place. So I do believe that in this case, the police could have done the search, and I think for the family to go through this traumatizing experience over the last year and a half, I think it's quite problematic. So I do believe that we're in the right place right now, and hopefully this will have some closure for the families.
The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs also commended the province for moving ahead on the landfill search, but the AMC said it and ISN Musqueam, the company who did the feasibility studies, must be included in the search in order to safeguard its integrity and to honor the family's need for answers. An update to a murder trial we told you about earlier this week, where Shaden Trey Rain's first-degree murder trial began in Wetaskiwin, Alberta. Rain was accused of fatally shooting 27-year-old Jeremy Sousay outside a Samson Cree Nation convenience store in September of 2022. On Wednesday morning, Rain pled guilty to the reduced charge of second-degree murder, which has a minimum sentence of life in prison with no chance of parole for 10 years. A new study led by the researchers at the University of Manitoba found that First Nations infants have a significantly high rate of involvement with child and family services. The study, published in the International Journal of Child Abuse and Neglect, was co-led by the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs and the First Nations Family Advocate Office. Here's APTN's Sierra Bettens with more.
New research from the University of Manitoba paints a dim picture of First Nations infants in the province's CFS system. Data on 47,000 First Nations and 169,000 non-First Nations babies from birth to age 5 between 1998 to 2019 was studied. 1 in 3 First Nation infants had an open CFS file, or 36%. That's more than 4 times higher than non-First Nations infants. 9% of the First Nations infants were placed into CFS custody, 7 times more than non-First Nations infants. At-birth apprehensions from First Nations families were 6 times higher than the others. Lead researcher, Dr. Kathleen Kenny, said the study gives much needed clarity.
I think the power in these data that we're using for this study is that we're able to look at rates at a whole population level. So we're able to say that this percent of the population, that 1 in 3 First Nations infants born in our study period had CFS involvement. And those kind of numbers have not been shown in prior research on this in this area.
The rate of CFS contact with First Nations infants grew by 22% over the same study period. For non-First Nations infants, that growth was just 2%. As Chief Betsy Kennedy of War Lake First Nation explains, First Nations children lose more than familial bonds when they're apprehended by CFS. They can also lose their culture, language, and identity.
I'm sure that they would feel that this is not their life, having been taught a different way of life. They would think that this is not their life, but yet, the parents and the grandparents and community would say that we've been looking and waiting for so long for you to come home.
Kennedy and the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs outlined a list of recommendations.
Manitoba has apprehended children highest, including the world, including Canada, including the province, so what does that tell you? And the parents and the families are going through a very difficult time, and that they don't know who to talk to, they don't know who to go to.
The study's authors say ending infant apprehensions, supporting family reunification homes, and adding community crisis centers outside CFS would help bring those numbers down. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
People in southwestern Manitoba were on edge yesterday as Environment Canada reported several tornadoes touching down in a 300-kilometer radius with golf ball-sized hail. The storm came in from Saskatchewan with the first tornado warning at around 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. For the next 3 hours, it traveled throughout southwest Manitoba. The worst of the damage reported so far happened on the Swan Lake First Nation, about 3 hours southwest of Winnipeg. The Powell Arbor was badly damaged, and the roof on one of the homes there was also damaged. Thankfully, there were no injuries. Councillor Craig Soldier told APTN News that plans are underway to rebuild the arbor. The annual powwow is just 2 weeks away. Extreme storm chaser Jordan Carruthers, who provided this footage, says it was quite a powerful storm system. He spoke to me about the damage at the Powell Arbor.
When we pulled up there, we could see right away that there was a bunch of tin that had been pulled off of the roof of the arbor, and a bunch of actual whole roofing panels with the 2x10 boards and everything had snapped off and gotten blown into the field around it, and there's quite a bit of damage in that small area, but thankfully nobody was injured or anything. Nobody was there when it happened.
Last year, fires raged from coast to coast, leading to evacuations of First Nation communities in British Columbia, Alberta, and the Northwest Territories. This week in Ottawa, federal ministers provided an update on the 2024 wildfire season. Here's Annette Francis with more.
The Minister of Emergency Preparedness, Harjit Sajing, says the government is bracing for another challenging wildfire season. There are now 69 active fires burning, which is below the 10-year average for this time of year. As of today, Canada is at a national preparedness level of 2. This indicates that wildfire activity is increasing.
Now, that being said, multiple regions are at an elevated risk due to a combination of hot, dry, and windy conditions. Now, the key areas of concern include northeastern British Columbia, northern Alberta, south-central Northwest Territories, and northern Quebec. There are also several new wildfires over east central and west central Quebec, which is the region of most risk for this upcoming week.
Patty Hadju, the Minister of Indigenous Services, says 80% of First Nation communities are in areas that are at risk, and there are currently 31 First Nations across the country that are affected by wildfires. 6 have been evacuated. This is why extra steps were taken to prepare for this wildfire season.
As we speak, all First Nations in Alberta and now Manitoba have emergency coordinators. And this is part of the plan to transition to the self-determined approach, because First Nations have always known what best they need. For example, in Saskatchewan Meadow Lake Tribal Council, they have received preparedness and mitigation funding following severe wildfires, and this is enabling community members to better prepare for evacuations and to reduce their dependence on outside organizations.
According to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Jonathan Wilkinson, forecasts indicate that the summer months will be warmer. That is why the federal government has made long-term investments, including $250 million to support and deliver life-saving equipment and personnel for the 2024 season.
We also announced $28 million to fund the training of additional firefighters and are on track to train 1,000 additional firefighters by the end of this year, which is 3 years ahead of schedule. And I was pleased to announce an $800,000 increase in funding for the International Association of Firefighters to bolster their successful program that trains municipal firefighters to fight fires in the municipal wildland interface.
Wilkinson said the provinces and federal government are working together to prepare for the coming months. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
There is big moves in northwestern Canada regarding Indigenous ownership. We'll tell you all about it when we return. Welcome back. A group of Indigenous communities from across the north will soon be the new owners of the telecommunications provider Northwestel. 60 North Unity, a consortium of Indigenous organizations from the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, says the purchase price for sale is up to $1 billion in cash. Once officially sold, Northwestel will be the largest telecommunications company worldwide with full Indigenous ownership. The consortium plans to keep Northwestel's current management and employees. Northwestel is the largest telecommunications provider in Canada's north, serving 97 communities across the Yukon, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, British Columbia, and Alberta, providing internet, home, phone, cable, and other services. To Saskatchewan now for a story about a woman who started sewing when she was 12 and who now creates her own unique line of clothes. First Nations University's Chelsea Reset has more now on the woman behind the scenes.
Tracy George Hayes from Ochapowace First Nation has been designing clothes for over 30 years.
I started sewing originally, hand sewing with my grandmother. She used to make moccasins and I'd sit beside her stringing beads. She was teaching me how to bead and how to sew, hand sew.
In the beginning, Tracy was sewing powwow outfits for herself and her family.
I really started sewing with a sewing machine when I was 12. My older sister taught me how to make a pattern for a shirt, and we had a meter of fabric, and that was the very first shirt I ever made.
She then branched out and started to sew for other people.
I started doing the shirts for powwow people and then rodeo people, and then it just translated into business people as well.
Her most popular item is the ribbon shirt, priced between $150 and $250. While she offers custom designs, she usually likes to keep 30 shirts in stock at all times.
The Manitoba First Nations men, they like hanging ribbons, loose ribbons. Part of them are tacked down, whereas in this area, I find that the First Nations community, the men prefer to have the whole ribbon tacked down.
Now she enjoys passing on her knowledge to others who want to learn.
I've been teaching sewing to others since 2000, and I want to make that a full-time gig rather than once every 3 months.
And she'll do that one stitch at a time. Chelsea Reset, Indigenized News, Regina.
A quick break now, but when we return, we will talk to this week's new guest on APTN's Warrior Up. We'll be right back. On the East Coast, Halifax 19, Charlottetown 20. The Grand River 5, Anujiwak 10. Saguenay 22 and sunny, St. Jovite 21 and sunny there. Sarnia 22, Toronto 27. Sioux Lookout 12 and rainy, Timmins 24. Puckatawagan 11, Churchill 5. Winnipeg 17, Barons River 17 there. Swift Current 12, Saskatoon 14. Buffalo Narrows 13, La Ronge 12. Showers in Peace River at 12, Fort Chipewyan 16 and sunny. Calgary 7, Lethbridge 25, rain there as well. Tofino 9, Vancouver 9. Dees Lake 5, Smithers 5 is there. Beaver Creek 10 and rain, Mayo 10 as well. Fort Simpson 16, Wati 13. Inuvik 5, Colville Lake 8. Baker Lake 7, Cambridge Bay 3. Clyde River 2, Iqaluit 3. Warrior Up is a documentary series that follows Indigenous youth across Turtle Island who are standing up and making change in their communities for the better. It airs every Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on APTN. The upcoming 6th episode on Saturday will feature Haley Rose from the Mosquito and Red Pheasant First Nation, a political science student who is speaking out for Indigenous youth across Saskatchewan and the country for more mental health support. She spoke with me earlier from Saskatoon. Haley, thank you for chatting with us today. First off, what was it like to be chosen and featured in APTN's Warrior Up?
It was a pretty big opportunity for myself, as it's something that I've never done before. Film is something that I always wanted to get into, and so when the opportunity came, I jumped. I was super excited, and I knew that it was going to open another door for me, so I was pretty happy about that.
And in this episode, you talk about the importance of Indigenous youth and mental health. Why is that so important to you?
I think right now we're seeing that a lot of our young people are going through identity crises. And I think it was, a reminder that we need to start revitalizing our culture, revitalizing our language, and bringing back that warrior spirit, because it's important that our young people understand where they come from, and they understand, that warrior blood that's in us all. And so for us to address, mental health and talk about, these issues that our young people are going through, it's also helping our older people deal with their trauma and deal with their pain. And it's inspiring a lot of, young individuals as well to speak about their own experiences.
You talked about how the pandemic impacted so many of our Indigenous youth, in the past, and it's carried on through the years now. What are you seeing in your community and how mental health is impacting them?
Well, I think with the COVID pandemic, it was a really big eye-opener for our First Nations as to, what we really needed to do to prepare them again, because, they were inside for a while there, and there was a disconnection. There was a disconnection to the land. There was a disconnection between our Architect and our elders, being in those spaces with our young people again. And I think a lot of our kids, forgot even how to be present in the moment. And, our children, we're seeing now that they're on TikTok, they're on social media all the time, and they were being exposed to a lot of things that young people shouldn't see. And I think they started to really compare themselves to what they were seeing on social media. And so when we came back to the real world and we were back in society and, things were, trying to become more balanced again, it was scary. It was scary because, little kids weren't little kids anymore. And we had to bring them back, to our ceremonies. We have to bring them back to our traditional ways, because they were so caught up in, their own little world. So I think mental health now is something that we're so openly aware about, and we're comfortable with speaking about it now because we know that everyone, our families, our parents, our mothers, our fathers, we're all dealing with anxiety, this anxiety that we were sick, this anxiety that, we were going to lose a lot of people in our lives that we cared about. So, I think at the same time, it really brought that sense of community, and I love that.
Yeah, a lot of important points to make. You were also chosen as this year's youth chief for the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations in Saskatchewan. What was that like being chosen, and what kind of work will you be doing under that new role?
Oh, geez. So I was elected back in April of 2022, and I was actually taken under their Vice Chief, Ali Bear's portfolios. And so at the time, she had a few portfolios. She had youth, and now currently she has justice and women's. And so I've been able to help her in all of those areas, serving all of our First Nations, all 74 First Nations. It really keeps me busy now, traveling here and there, all over our province. It's a lot of work, but my focus has always been, trying to involve our young people in these initiatives and getting them, in the right spaces to speak up and to use their voices. Right now, we work with our missing and murdered Indigenous women and families. Our families here in Saskatchewan are severely affected by this national genocide, and we've been building, safe spaces for our women to go heal, to be able to feel safe and feel protected. Yeah. And that's been, one of our highlights is building this Red Eagle Lodge for all women in Saskatchewan, so they can go there to feel safe and to feel heard and to get the services and the resources that they need through these tough times. At the same time, working in schools, I'm still a university student, and so, staying really active there with sports. I'm always showing up to the res tourneys, and it's fun, and I think my focus is on the little young kids too, the little 6 and 7, 8-year-olds, because I know that they need a lot of love. They need a lot of love and a lot of comfort. And so being able to be, their anchor, their strength is, I'm grateful. Yeah. I'm very grateful.
Well, thank you, Haley, for talking to us today, and we wish you all the best on your journey ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And, every opportunity is amazing. And, when we think about National Indigenous Peoples Day coming up, National Indigenous History Month, this is exactly what we need for people to shed light, on all the achievements that our people are making.
And that's our midday newscast for this Thursday, June 13th. Dennis Ward will be back for the evening newscast with more brand new stories. From everyone here in Winnipeg, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching.